A lot of people look at Fallout 4 as a fairly disappointing game. It's plagued by a bunch of different issues, although it did have some other improvements over things like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. And really, although there's a vocal minority saying it's the worst game in the series, I definitely think it's more of a mixed bag. With that in mind, what are some of the opportunities that Fallout 4 missed? Things that really should have and could have been in the game, and honestly would have made the game a lot more memorable and enjoyable in certain ways. Well, in today's video, I'm going to look at 3 such opportunities. Again, these are all going to be my own opinions, so you guys may have your own opinions. I'd love to know in the comments down below what in your eyes are really big missed opportunities in Fallout 4, whether they be story related, DLC related, or maybe even just part of what items are included in the game. I don't know. So one of the ones that really just jumps out to me instantly is DLC taking place in another location. So some of the previous Fallout games have actually done this, but really I feel like Fallout 4 could have set the new standard and actually taken us outside of the United States, and maybe even to someplace fairly far away like Canada or China, Japan. The Fallout games are really ingrained in kind of 1960 America culture. It's a huge part of their identity, but at the same time we're now on the 3rd game. Fallout 4 had a long break in between its release and Fallout New Vegas. It was time for Bethesda to mix things up, to do something a bit differently, and honestly the DLC for Fallout 4 was immensely disappointing to, I think, almost everyone. At least in my experience, that's one of the most universally held opinions about the game, is that the DLC really didn't live up to its predecessors. Even if you like workshop packs, the rest of the DLC was honestly super forgettable, to the point where I couldn't even tell you most of the things included with it. The only 2 that I really particularly enjoyed was, of course, Far Harbor as well as the Robot DLC. I think both of those are really cool and interesting. But what if another DLC was added in, again taking us to some place like China? In Fallout 4 there's a side quest where you're helping this guy on a submarine. Eventually he does return back to his homeland, or at least he wants to. What if there's something similar like that? There was another submarine or some other mode. Maybe this takes you to a peninsula or part of mainland China, and from there you would have a totally different experience. The architecture, the weapons you see, the hopefully accents from the different NPCs would all be extremely new and refreshing. It would make that DLC memorable even if the story sucked. I personally would love an experience like this. I know a lot of people have been really clamoring for something in Fallout, whether it be a new game, although I personally think that's really unlikely, or even further a DLC to take us outside of the United States again and actually give us a proper experience in one of these locations. Another really big one that I feel like just jumps out at me as you play through the game is the Gunners. The Gunners are pretty much just a higher caliber of raider. There's really not that much depth to them. Of course, you can find some backstory and lore if you read through some of the terminals, but it's really not fleshed out, and you again have to go digging. There's no quests associated with them, but I feel like they had so much potential to kind of be an opposite of the Minutemen. The Minutemen are the good guys that want to help all the different settlements. What if you could side with the Gunners also and have more selfish ideals, take down the Minutemen even? Imagine a finale to Fallout 4 where you had a big war going on between the Gunners and the Minutemen. You could choose which side to be on. The Gunners really aren't all that bad. I mean, they're just kind of a mercenary, or even could have been converted to more of a paramilitary group, like a Brotherhood of Steel, but with ballistic and not energy weapons. Maybe you could help them take over their own settlements also, establishing outposts, setting up military bases for arms manufacturing or something like that. They're just such an interesting faction in concept, but they really were not taken advantage of. Even a few side quests for them would have made them a lot more fun, rather than just being another thing that you shoot on sight, but this time they shoot back with a little bit of a bigger gun. That's the role the Raiders fill. That's the role the Super Mutants fill. Do we really need a 3rd group filling that same role? Imagine as you started Fallout 4, you had a choice between siding with the Gunners or Preston at the Museum of Freedom. The Gunners were on the outside and Preston was on the inside. Very similar to what goes on at Drumlin Diner, but imagine that had far-reaching consequences throughout the entire game. I just think it could have been so much more of an interesting game, and it would have really addressed some of the major flaws Fallout 4 had to begin with. So and last but not least, we do have city building. As you explore through Fallout 4, you'll realize very quickly that there aren't nearly as many notable cities as previous Fallout games. It's believed that this is largely due to the implementation of the new settlement system, the ability for you to hypothetically create your own settlements or cities, and various areas for this have been placed around the map, and those areas are thus replacing the cities that you otherwise really would have found. I personally like the settlement system. I think it definitely could use some improvements like diplomacy and things like that, but I understand why Bethesda didn't do that on their first go at it. What I wish they did do was place down a few built-up cities at some of these settlement spots. Imagine the first time you went to the Starlight Drive-In or Spectacle Island, you found a big sprawling city built out of the same settlement props that you can build your own out of, rather than just, a barren thing or a bunch of blown up cars that you're gonna have to delete anyway. I personally think that would have made the locations way more interesting, and the reason I say city building is, let's say then you had a quest to actually get control or become the mayor of that city. Then it would just be your normal settlement mode, except except there would be an existing city, existing NPCs, and settlers living there, and you could feel like you actually inherited something, like you are actually in control and had a massive reward. Similar to how you become general of the Minutemen, except, well, that really is meaningless, except this time you could get control or become the mayor of a city and have it mean a lot. I personally think this would have been a really cool feature to have in the game, and obviously by the success of certain mods adding in pre-built settlements into Fallout 4, people want this. I myself don't like building settlements that much. It's a cool concept, but it's definitely not my favorite thing to do, and I would much rather play the game. With that being said, I don't like having all these areas of just blanket nothingness. Having something pre-built there or left there for me to earn or maybe even just get easily would have been a lot more interesting, and I feel like another huge missed opportunity. So those are my 3 missed opportunities for Fallout 4. I'm sure the list for this can go much longer. As always though, I thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative, and hopefully I'll see you all next time. Later.